Haru is a massive outcast who hasn't been to class since brutally beating up seniors on day 1. But his terrifying reputation shatters when a grade-obsessed girl bluntly exposes his fake friends and reveals that he is actually getting extorted for cash. It happens when Haru introduces his friends to Shizuku. Shizuku bluntly told him those boys were using him and were not real friends. Hearing this hurt Haru. He threw his drink at her and called her harsh, then walked away. Angry, Shizuku threw her shake at him and ran off. The next day, Seiko warned that if Haru didn't come back, he could be kicked out of school. Shizuku went to look for him, but there she heard those same boys saying they wouldn't go to Haru anymore because he stopped giving them money. She realized Haru had heard everything. She told herself this was not her problem, but she still could not stand what happened to him. She went up to those boys and told them to tell the truth because Haru really believed they were his friends. One of the boys tried to touch her, but Haru arrived at that moment, grabbed him, and kicked the whole group out. Later, Haru walked Shizuku home, started crying from happiness, and said if she was at school, he would come back too. Then he suddenly told her he loved her. Shizuku thought maybe he was confusing loneliness with love because he never had real friends, but Haru said his feelings would not change. To understand how Shizuku got into this situation, we have to go back. She only cared about her grades and stayed away from anything that could distract her from studying. Haru Yoshida sat in the seat next to her, and everyone was scared of him. On the first day, he had beaten up some senior students, so he got suspended and never came back to class. Because Shizuku sat closest to his empty seat, their teacher Saiko told her to take Haru's handouts to him. Shizuku went to find him at the Misawa batting center and quickly understood why people were scared of him. Haru's attitude was harsh, he was unpredictable, and he got into fights easily. But when he realized Shizuku came just for him, he got nervous and jumped out the window. On her way back, he suddenly appeared in front of Shizuku and accused her of being a spy for the school. But when Shizuku calmly explained she only came to give him handouts, his mood changed right away. He got happy, decided by himself that they were friends now, and asked her name. Back at school, when Shizuku told Seiko that Haru called her his friend, Seiko was shocked and told her to convince Haru to come back, but Shizuku refused because she didn't want anything to do with him. Later, after school, Haru stopped her again and took her with him. During this time, Shizuku slowly started to understand that under his violent attitude, he was a boy who wanted connection and spoke honestly. He asked about school and admitted he didn't go back because everyone was scared of him. He called some boys his friends, but they only came to him for money. Haru came back to school, but it was not easy for him to fit into normal student life. He scared the other students, misunderstood normal social behavior, and stayed with Shizuku all the time. One day, Seiko even gave him a romance guide so he could learn how to act with girls, but he followed everything in the book too literally. Shizuku started to get annoyed with him because Haru kept distracting her from studying. Studying was especially important for her because she wanted to be the top student and give the opening ceremony speech, but she came in second place. Now she decided she would be first in the midterms. Then Haru easily solved one of her hard questions, and Shizuku realized the missing top scorer in the entrance ranking was Haru. From that moment, she saw him as a rival and tried to avoid him so she could focus only on her studies. But her plan failed because problems kept coming with Haru. Because he had beaten up senior students before, some of them targeted Shizuku just because she was close to him, and they forced her to go with them. Even in this situation, Shizuku stubbornly tried to keep studying. Haru arrived, lost control when he saw this, and beat up the senior students, but in the fight, Shizuku also got hurt. Angry and tired, she told Haru she was fed up with all the trouble that came with him and they should stop being friends. Hearing this shocked Haru, and he disappeared from her daily life. A few weeks later, the midterm results came out, and Shizuku finally got first place. This was the result she had worked for, but instead of feeling happy, she felt empty. She realized that pushing Haru away did not make things better, so she went to meet him, thanked him for protecting her, and admitted she never really hated him. They made up, and Haru said if studying was so important to her, then now it was important to him too. This simple thing affected Shizuku more than she expected. For the first time, she started to understand that caring about someone could change a person's priorities. To fix things the right way, she agreed to go eat monjo with Haru, something he had been asking for a long time. On the way, she said she liked seeing him happy, and Haru suddenly kissed her without warning. Shizuku froze and got very embarrassed, while Haru looked confused and said his heart did not race like the romance book said, but he still loved her. They kept walking to the restaurant, but Shizuku got so nervous, she just kept eating to calm herself instead of thinking about her feelings. Until now, her world only turned around around grades, routine, and practical goals. But after meeting Haru, this world started to change. By the end of the episode, Shizuku was no longer just the girl who only studied. She was now standing at the edge of new and confusing feelings, with Haru at the center. The next day, after their strange dinner and sudden kiss, Seiko announced that anyone who got low marks in the midterms would have to take a makeup exam. Haru was included too, but not because his marks were low, but because he forgot to write his name on his papers, so all his answers were marked wrong. Haru immediately said if Shizuku was not taking the exam, he would not take it either. At that moment, Shizuku realized something troubling. If Haru had just written his name, he would have ranked even higher than her. During this time, Haru started bringing a chicken named Nagoya to school after finding it in the rain. While everyone else focused on his new strange habit, Shizuku could not get the kiss out of her mind. She tried to avoid Haru, but that only made her think about him more, and slowly she started to realize her feelings for him were getting more serious. On the way home, Shizuku tried to bring up Haru's earlier confession and asked if he really meant it in a romantic way. Haru, in his direct way, answered that he was attracted to her in every way, and this confused Shizuku even more. She could not even process this when suddenly, a girl from their class, Natsume Asako, came and asked Shizuku to help her prepare for the makeup exam. If she failed, she would have to take remedial classes and miss an offline meeting of the online community where she felt most accepted. Shizuku refused at first because she saw no reason to spend her time on someone who clearly did not take school seriously. But Haru, after hearing about this meeting, got interested for his own reason. Because he wanted chances to make more friends, he offered to teach Asako, but only if she would take him to the meeting too. This study session went badly from the start. Haru taught in a very harsh and confusing way, which was not right for Asako, and she understood almost nothing. Meanwhile, Shizuku sat outside with Nagoya instead. When Haru came outside to look for the runaway Asako, Shizuku took the chance to ask him a question. She asked why he and Asako were so desperate to make new friends, when it was clear that both of them found it hard to get along with people. Haru answered with more honesty than usual, and said that before, he felt a kind of emptiness that scared him, like he was surrounded by darkness. But now that fear was less, because now he had Shizuku. This should have comforted Shizuku, but instead, it confused her more, because Haru was saying he saw the answer to his loneliness in Shizuku, but his way still felt distant, like he was reaching for something he did not fully understand himself. As the makeup exams came closer, Shizuku felt she could not focus like before. Even in the library, her thoughts kept going to Haru. During this time, she met Sasayan from the baseball team, who easily introduced himself and asked how she got close to Haru. He explained that he and Haru went to the same middle school, but in those 3 years, Haru never came to class even once. Hearing this made Shizuku think Haru's connection to the current school, and especially his attachment to her, was even stranger. Before Sasayan left, Shizuku asked him for a favor and told him to take care of Nagoya, because Haru kept bringing the chicken to school even though Saiko had warned him not to. On the other side, Asako got worried because there was only 1 day left before the makeup test, and Haru's tutoring had been useless for her. Finally, Shizuku agreed and taught her all night, making her remember only the important things most likely to be on the exam, and this went on until morning. This hard work paid off. Asako passed the makeup exam and was happy to avoid remedial classes. But this small success did not solve the bigger problem in her life. When she later went to the offline meeting, things went badly. Haru got into a fight again, and the girls there soon pulled away from Asako when they saw her in a way that was different from her online version, which she showed in a more comfortable environment. She came back upset and angry and blamed Haru for ruining the event, even though it was also clear that the weak social world she built for herself was never as strong as she wanted to believe. In her own way, Asako was not much different from Haru. Both of them wanted to be accepted so badly that they chose ways to get it that actually hurt them. Shizuku understood this clearly, even if she did not say it out loud. Later, when the noise from class and other people tired her, Shizuku went to the roof for some quiet and fell asleep there. At one point, Asako came back to thank her, saw Haru sitting next to the sleeping Shizuku, and quietly left them alone. When Shizuku woke up, she realized her head was in Haru's lap. Embarrassed, she tried to get up right away and worried that she might have missed her class. But Haru gently told her to stay there and rest. This quiet moment affected her more deeply than anything else in the episode. She started to think about how much her world had changed since meeting Haru. Before Haru, her life was limited and simple, built only around grades. Now life felt bigger, warmer, and more alive, even if it was more confusing. Under this feeling, Shizuku suddenly said she loved him. As soon as the words left her mouth, she panicked. turned red and quickly said it was a lie. Haru asked if they should start being together now, but when she insisted she was not serious, Haru quietly said that hearing it was a lie actually made him feel better. This answer surprised Shizuku. For the first time, she understood that Haru's feelings were not as simple as his blunt words made them seem, and both of them were still standing at the edge of feelings they did not fully understand themselves. The next day at school, Sasayan brought back the chicken Nagoya because keeping it at his house became a problem because of his cat. Seiko started scolding Haru again for bringing the chicken to school, but the class suggested making a coop so Nagoya could stay there properly. Seiko said the school would never allow it, but when she went to ask, she got permission, and the class immediately started planning to build it. While everyone else talked about materials and design, Shizuku was lost in another thought. She kept remembering what happened on the roof and wondered if she should have accepted Haru's suggestion that they start being together. On the weekend, everyone gathered to buy materials. Sasayan and Asako reached Misawa Batting Center first, where they saw the manager calmly lending money to some suspicious boys. A little later, Haru also arrived, and Shizuku came late. She said she was late because her little brother messed up her alarm. In the hardware store, Shizuku ran into the same boys who used to take money from Haru. They recognized her and came toward her in a way that clearly made her uneasy. Sasayan immediately stepped in, threw a basket at one of the boys, and pulled Shizuku away, but the boys followed them inside the store. Haru arrived just in time and easily pushed away two of the boys when they got too close. The rest ran away and the situation was under control. In the end, Asako bought the materials and everyone went back. After this event, Haru started thinking and said Shizuku had been acting strange lately. Normally, she would never help with the chicken or spend her weekend like this. Shizuku denied anything had changed, but inside, she was shaken that Haru noticed her change so clearly. They took the wood and tools back to the Misawa Batting Center parking lot and started building the coop there. Cutting the boards turned out to be much harder than expected, so Haru went to get the chainsaw the manager mentioned. As soon as he left, those same boys from the store came back. This time, they said they only came because they wanted to make peace with Haru. Sasayan suggested they apologize, while Shizuku said she did not care what they wanted. They should just stop getting in the way. One of the boys bluntly said Shizuku must be in love with Haru, and hearing this made her embarrassed right away. At that moment, Haru came back, saw them standing around Shizuku, and got ready to fight again. Before things could get worse, Shizuku quickly changed the subject and said if they really wanted to prove they had no bad intentions, then they should help finish the chicken coop. Haru surprisingly agreed right away, and the mood changed. Asako came back with ice cream. Some of the boys were distracted by her, and after hours of strange teamwork, the coop was finally finished. Nagoya got its new home, and for the first time, this group actually felt like a group, not just a collection of separate problems. At the end of the day, Sasayan and Asako left together, and on the way back, Haru and Shizuku were alone. Haru told her he was thinking about luck and balance. He said maybe life finally evens out, and if that was true, then meeting Shizuku must have been the moment when all the bad things in his life were balanced by something good, because according to him, only good things had happened since Shizuku came into his life. Hearing this, Shizuku finally moved past her hesitation. She admitted that her earlier confession on the roof was true and said she really had started to love him. She also said she remembered Haru said he felt better when she called her feelings a lie, so now she did not know what to do with these feelings that had become real. Haru also answered honestly. He said he loved her too, but not in the same way she loved him, and this difference scared him. He was afraid that when Shizuku understood his real feelings, she might leave him. Instead of pulling away, Shizuku gave a direct answer. She said they should start from the beginning, and when Haru loved her the same way, she would tell him her feelings again. Haru was left silent at how calmly Shizuku accepted something he could not even explain himself. This quiet moment ended suddenly when Haru got a message that Yuzan was coming. As soon as he heard this, he got anxious, grabbed Shizuku, and said they would have to spend the night somewhere else. For a moment, Shizuku had a more embarrassing thought about the situation, but in the end, the place they went was just her own house. Her father was shocked to see Haru come with her, and from the start, the whole situation felt strangely domestic. Shizuku made food while Haru stayed there as if he had no problem being in her house. Later, Haru came out after a bath without a shirt, and this made Shizuku even more careful about herself. She tried not to think about him too much, especially after her earlier confession, but now everything about him and every move he made felt different to her. During this time, Yuzan arrived at Misawa Batting Center, found out Haru would not come back that night, and still stayed there, like he knew Haru could not avoid him forever. Later, Shizuku found Haru sleeping in the living room and told him to use the futon, instead of just falling asleep there. Even then, she could not shake the feeling that whenever it was about Yuzan, something changed in Haru. The way he so easily made himself part of her home made the feelings in this episode even more confusing. And now Yuzan's arrival was casting a shadow over everything that would happen next. The next morning, Haru calmly told her that during the night, a young boy stood over him and stared at him in a strange way. Shizuku explained that it was just her little little brother. Haru, who was now completely comfortable in the house, asked for eggs with broken yolk for breakfast and told her father he looked nothing like Shizuku. Shizuku had already admitted what she felt, but Haru was still stuck between fear, attachment, and a feeling he could not name yet. Several weeks passed, and the final exam results were posted. Haru got first place in the class, while Shizuku dropped to second place. This result affected her more than she wanted to admit, and Asako's attempts to make her feel better did not help much. On the other hand, Haru was already thinking about summer and calmly started talking about the beach and bikinis, which made Shizuku stop him right away and focus even more on studying. Still upset about the difference in their scores, she went to Seiko and asked why she lost marks on one answer. Seiko explained that Shizuku's answer was not completely wrong, but it did not have the emotional understanding needed for the question. Since the topic was about heartbreak, after this talk, Shizuku started thinking about her situation with Haru. Haru had not directly rejected her, but he also had not accepted her feelings the way she wanted, and this made her wonder how she fell in love with him and what she should do next. Soon after, Shizuku met Haru again when some girls nervously came to pick up a ball that rolled toward him. Haru was only returning the ball, but his face looked so harsh that the girls left as soon as they could. Shizuku bluntly told him that if he kept staring at people like that, they would keep avoiding him, and also said she liked him better when he smiled. This one comment changed everything. Haru started trying to smile in front of people, and the effect was immediate. Girls started to gather around him, talked to him more openly, and looked at him with a kindness he rarely got. Haru proudly told Shizuku that her advice worked, but instead of being happy, Shizuku started to feel jealous. She saw that as soon as people stopped being scared, other girls quickly got interested in him, and for the first time, she had to admit she did not like sharing his attention with others. Asako noticed this too and openly called it jealousy, which Shizuku could not really deny. At the same time, preparations for the school sports day started. Sasayan brought the sign-up sheet to everyone, and people started writing their names for different events. Asako turned out to be surprisingly athletic, while Shizuku struggled badly, especially during volleyball, where she could barely participate and then got hit in the face by the ball. While the girls were helping her recover, they heard news about other events. Meanwhile, Haru was once again surrounded by girls, and some of them were even trying to feed him, which made Shizuku's mood worse. During a break, Sasayan told her he was glad things seemed to be going better for Haru this time. When Shizuku asked what he meant, Sasayan explained that in middle school, Haru was much more violent and eventually stopped coming to class because nobody wanted to be near him. Then Shizuku asked why he cared so much about Haru if they were not close before. He only said that he owed Haru, and it was clear there was some history between them he was not ready to talk about. Later that same day, Haru saw a girl with glasses surrounded by some older boys. He stepped in without hesitation, asked why they were bothering her, and quickly got into another fight. He hit one of them, but as soon as people gathered and started looking at him with fear, the mood changed. Haru immediately realized the same thing had happened again. He tried to help someone, but the result was that he looked dangerous himself. Shizuku arrived, took him away as a teacher began to pursue them, and listened when he asked if he really did something so wrong. Shizuku said she could not say he handled it the right way, but she knew he was a good person. This answer surprised Haru. For someone who was always judged by the violence people saw first, hearing that someone understood the intention behind it was very important. He reached toward her, touched her forehead, and they got so close that the moment almost turned into a kiss. But Sasayan interrupted and called Haru for the next match. Before leaving, Haru told Shizuku that if his team won, she would have to go somewhere with him during summer break. She agreed, and when he won, the promise was set. Summer break came, and the group went out together, including Haru, Shizuku, Asako, Sasayan, and Mitsuyoshi from the batting center. The day included swimming, fishing, and then cooking the fish they caught, and some people were better in the water than others. During the meal, Mitsuyoshi said he was Haru's cousin, and then brought up Haru's older brother, but Haru quickly stopped him so he could not say more. This tension became even clearer when they returned and found Yuzan waiting at the batting center. Haru ran away as soon as he saw him. At first, Asako thought Yuzan was the person who borrowed money from Mitsuyoshi before, but actually it was the opposite, and Mitsuyoshi owed him. Yuzan looked calm and in control, but his presence clearly made Haru the most anxious. Sasayan told Shizuku that Haru started coming to school again because of her, and Yuzan told her to keep an eye on him, which made her feel uneasy. On the way home, Haru suddenly pulled Shizuku aside. When she asked why he ran from Yuzan, Haru directly said he hated his brother. When she tried to ask why, he quickly told her not to ask more. Shizuku got annoyed and started to walk away, but she did not really leave him. Instead, she brought him to her house so they could finish the watermelon they got from the summer trip. Sitting together, she realized that even after sharing so much, there were still parts of Haru she knew almost almost nothing about. Haru apologized for his behavior, and when he asked what he could do for her in return for always standing by him, Shizuku gave him a blunt answer that she wanted a date with him. By the end of the episode, their relationship had moved forward again, but now there was a more serious thing added. Shizuku was not just trying to understand her own feelings. She also started to see that Haru had some wounds and fears connected to Yuzan, and loving him might also mean facing those parts of his life he still refused to talk about openly. Later, Haru told Mitsuyoshi about it, and even though he knew in theory what a date was, the way he talked made it clear he understood very little about the emotional side of it. Mitsuyoshi immediately warned him not to do anything that would scare Shizuku away. A few weeks later, the second semester started. Haru arrived at school very early, and he was happy to see Nagoya again. But more than that, unlike summer break, now he could see Shizuku every day. He said this so openly that Shizuku turned red in front of everyone, and the other students were surprised at how naturally he said things that were usually considered embarrassing. Back in class, Asako looked in bad shape and admitted she had a fever, but the people around her immediately told her not to make them sick. During this noise, Haru saw Shizuku studying trigonometry even though it was a subject for next year. When she asked when he found time to learn so much, he calmly said that since he never went to class in middle school, he spent all that time studying by himself. Then, as if that was not strange enough, he immediately changed the subject and asked where she wanted to go on their date. Shizuku answered very seriously that she wanted to go to the library. Even after saying this, she could not stop thinking about it. Haru always stayed close to her and always spoke directly, but the more time she spent with him, the more she felt there were still parts of him hidden from her. She kept thinking about how much Haru was willing to show about himself and where he stopped. After school, she told him she was going to the library, and Haru started walking with her, almost as if he half-joked that maybe their date would really turn out like this. But before they could get anywhere, they saw a crowd of girls on campus gathered around one person. As soon as Haru realized Yuzan was at the center of everyone's attention, he disappeared right away and left Shizuku there. Then Yuzan came straight to her and said he was actually there to meet her, not Haru. When Yuzan took Shizuku with him, Haru hid in a bush nearby and immediately regretted not grabbing Shizuku and running away with her first. When he came out of the bush, he saw the girl with glasses he helped on sports day, and he scared her. He told her to help him and keep watch to see if Yuzan was still around or not. While talking, Haru found out she was the class representative, and this impressed him because he thought it was a special position, something everyone respected. The girl answered that people only chose her because she wore glasses and looked the part. Haru got interested, thinking about how he would look if he wore glasses himself, and when the girl said he might look good, Haru smiled and told her she was a good person. This simple compliment made the girl so embarrassed she almost went silent. Then Haru got a message from Yuzan with a picture showing he was out with Shizuku, like he was challenging Haru to find them. Haru ran off right away. Meanwhile, Yuzan kept walking with Shizuku in the city with no clear destination, making small talk, like talking about sweets as if it was just a normal walk. Shizuku was not interested in this, but finally he bought donuts and then got to the real point. He told her that when Haru was young and got into trouble, their father kicked him out of the house. Now suddenly their father wanted to bring him back. At first it seemed like Yuzan was there to take Haru home, but then he said the opposite. He wanted Haru to stay at school. What their father wanted and what Yuzan wanted were not the same thing. Yuzan explained that if Haru went home, it would make things worse for both of them, so as long as Haru kept going to school and stayed where he was now, that ending could be avoided. That was why he wanted Shizuku to stay involved. In his opinion, if anyone could keep Haru connected to school, it was only Shizuku. Finally, Haru arrived and immediately pulled Shizuku to his side, then told Yuzan to stay out of their lives. Even then, Shizuku stopped him and said he should at least listen to all of what Yuzan wanted to say. Yuzan repeated the same thing he wanted from Haru, that he should stay at school. Haru agreed to this much, then warned Yuzan not to show up again and left with Shizuku. On the way home, he asked her why she even went with Yuzan. Shizuku told him the truth, that she wanted to know more about him. Haru did not react well to this and told her not to go near Yuzan again. But Shizuku refused to accept that he could order her like that. She even said that anyway, there was not even an official relationship between them yet. Haru immediately threw her own confession back at her and reminded her she said she loved him. And as soon as he said this, both of them got embarrassed and any attempt to keep the talk distant ended. After that, Haru started telling her about his childhood. Even now, he did not tell her everything, and Shizuku could tell he was especially leaving out the part connected to those 3 missing years of middle school. Still, he told enough that Shizuku understood home was not an easy place for him. She asked if he really wanted to go back. Shizuku said if going home was really his own wish, then he should do it, even if it hurt her. At the same time, she admitted she did not want him far from her. Then she reached out and touched his face, and without saying much more, made it clear she had never thought about losing losing him before, but now the idea scared her. Haru smiled at this and answered as directly as he could that he wanted to stay with her. The next day at school, this fragile peace was affected by a very small but important event. When Shizuku and Asako were at the lockers, the girl with glasses came to thank Haru for helping her on sports day. Haru listened kindly and then gave her one of those smiles Shizuku told him to use. From the girl's reaction, it was clear this was not just about saying thanks anymore. Shizuku saw this and immediately understood what was happening. Now someone else was starting to be interested in Haru, and after Yuzan, Haru's past, and the idea of losing him, Shizuku could no longer pretend that it did not matter to her. A new school day started, but Shizuku was not in a state to feel good about it. Ever since it became impossible for her to ignore her feelings for Haru, she was scattered and restless, and she did not know what to do with these feelings. They kept interfering with the part of her life she always thought was her best. As if she was being reminded of the rules she always followed, at that moment a fax came from her mother Yoshino, asking if she and her little brother were handling school properly. This made Shizuku think even more. At the same time, another girl was also going through her own quiet loneliness. Chizuru Oshima, the girl with glasses Haru helped on sports day, stayed isolated even after becoming class representative. When she transferred in, everyone else had already formed their groups, and she was left like a quiet stranger who did not fit anywhere. She kept in touch with her friend Yu from another school by text, but still stayed alone in class. Then she overheard some girls saying Haru was probably in a relationship with the girl he was always seen with, and this clearly affected her. Later, in Shizuku's class, students were chosen for different roles, and Haru made a strange effort to win by wearing glasses, because Oshima once told him people trusted students who looked serious and responsible. He honestly thought this would work, so when nobody chose him for anything, he was clearly disappointed. After class, Asako and Sasayan joked that maybe Oshima liked Haru, but Shizuku said she did not care because her falling grades were more important. Still, her reaction clearly showed it did bother her. At lunch, Oshima was sitting alone on the stairs as usual, and Haru suddenly sat next to her. He complained that her glasses advice did not help him at all, then quickly noticed that even though she was class representative, she had no friends. He told her he used to be the same way. The only difference was that now he actually had people around him. Oshima nervously asked if he was in a relationship with Asako, but Haru denied it and said Asako was just a friend. Then he said honestly that the person he loved was Shizuku. Oshima went quiet at how directly he said this. Right after this talk, Asako arrived and found out from Haru that Oshima really had no friends. Because Asako knew what that kind of loneliness felt like, she immediately tried to pull Oshima into her group. They talked about meeting in the library and getting her used to being with people, but Shizuku, who was already weighed down by her own feelings, refused to come along and left. The next day in gym class, the teacher paired Oshima and Shizuku for stretches because neither had a partner. Oshima apologized for the awkward situation from the day before, but Shizuku told her if other people were making her uncomfortable, she should just say it clearly. Oshima explained that people were not really bothering her. The real problem was that she did not have the confidence to take the first step herself. This answer felt closer to Shizuku than she expected, because she was also fighting with something she could not say directly. Later, Oshima was sitting alone on the same stairs again, when Haru found her and asked if she had seen Shizuku because she was avoiding him. Oshima told him not to force the friendship for her sake, then carefully asked if his love for Shizuku was romantic. As soon as she saw him get serious, she quickly told him not to answer, like she already knew hearing the truth would only hurt her more. A little later, Asako came there with Shizuku and Sasayan and took everyone to spend time together. Asako and Sasayan went to play tennis nearby, while Haru, Shizuku, and Oshima sat quietly in a strange three-sided group. Finally, Haru directly asked Shizuku why she kept avoiding him. This time, instead of dodging, Shizuku said the real problem. She said that whenever she thought about him, her chest started to hurt and her heart beat so hard she could not focus. She was saying this to show how deeply being in love was affecting her, but Haru completely misunderstood and thought maybe she was really sick. Oshima, annoyed by his cluelessness, suddenly snapped and harshly told him he was amazingly dense. Everyone was surprised by this sudden reaction, and as soon as Oshima realized what she had done, she ran away in embarrassment. Asako told Haru to go after her, and he did. When Haru caught up to her, Oshima was very embarrassed and tried to make what happened seem like nothing. But Haru answered in his usual direct way. He said only people who push themselves too much snap like that, so she should just try as much as she could and then keep going. It was not a soft or pretty comfort, but it still reached her. After this moment, Oshima became even more sure her feelings for Haru were real. At the same time, Shizuku had her own important thought. She remembered her childhood and realized studying always made her feel complete. It gave her a clear goal, a future she could see, and a sense of control over her life. Compared to that, love felt unstable, confusing, and out of control. So she made a hard decision that anything that took her off that path had to be cut off, even if that thing was Haru. On the day of their long-planned date, Asako and Sasayan came to Misawa Batting Center and learned from Mitsuyoshi that Haru and Shizuku had already gone out together. This started a different talk between them, where Asako admitted she was a little hurt that Shizuku did not share more about her feelings, even though she thought they were friends. Mitsuyoshi explained that Shizuku was not the kind of person who opened up easily to others, but when she finally said something, people should take her words seriously. Meanwhile, Haru and Shizuku spent their date in the one place that probably fit both of them best, the library. There, sitting across from him, Shizuku calmly told him she did not want to be pulled toward him anymore, because she decided to cut off anything that distracted her from studying. She said Haru was a genius, who did not need to study hard, but she was not like that, and she could not afford to lose her focus. Haru was left frozen after hearing this, and asked if now he was an obstacle for her. Shizuku did not deny it. She said it was something she had to handle inside herself. By the end of the episode, Haru left the library completely broken, while Shizuku stuck to the decision she thought would protect the future she always worked for, even if it meant turning away from the person she loved. Haru came back very broken after the library date because Shizuku had clearly told him she wanted to remove everything from her life that distracted her from studying. At Misawa Batting Center, Mitsuyoshi found an old photo of Kyoko. He showed the photo to Haru, and it immediately reminded him of the time Kyoko took him in. This quiet memory of someone who once gave him a place to stay and a sense of belonging stayed with him until the next day. At school, Haru was lying in the sun next to Nagoya when Oshima came near him. Since the day she suddenly snapped at him, they had not really talked, so she thanked him for what he said after that and admitted she now felt a bit better. Then, Haru directly told her that things were not going well between him and Shizuku. He said Shizuku rejected him, even though he had never properly asked her to date him. Oshima told him that if he really wanted to reach Shizuku, he should stop talking in circles and just say what he really wanted to say. Asako, who was hiding nearby, listened to all of this like she was investigating love problems herself, then suddenly appeared and told Haru not to give up and not to act so weak. Haru did not take her attitude very seriously, but the message still got through to him. Later, Haru was walking with Nagoya and muttering that girls always scold him. At that moment, he remembered something Kyoko once said. She told him that one day he would meet someone who made him feel at peace and feel like he was in the right place. Not long after, he saw Shizuku dozing by the library window and went closer to wake her up. The moment got serious when he told her directly that he loved her. Shizuku was surprised, but kept herself together and said she did not feel anything for him now. Haru answered that even if that was true, just staying close to her was enough for him. Then, almost in the same breath, he asked her to get into a relationship with him. When Shizuku refused, he kept repeating the same thing, and so the conversation turned into an argument instead of a confession scene. After that, Shizuku became even more careful around him. Some time passed and the exam results came out. Haru got first place again, while Shizuku stayed in second place. She was very angry that she still could not beat him, and Haru calmly said that this time he just tried a little harder. This answer made her even more upset, because it made Haru's talent seem much easier than her own, while she always had to work hard. On the other side, Asako failed again, so on results day, there was a small problem from her too. Shizuku left with a strong resolve to study even harder, while Haru, remembering Kyoko's words, quietly decided that if Shizuku kept trying, he would keep trying too. During these days, Shizuku continued support classes at cram school, and there she started meeting Yama-ken again. His interest in Shizuku was obvious, even though Shizuku was just as blunt and direct with him as she was with everyone else. At school, preparations for the cultural festival began. Shizuku gave Haru tickets for the festival, but instead of just taking them, he suddenly licked her hand. This action shocked her so much and felt so unpleasant that she pulled back right away and told him clearly that if he kept doing things like this, she would lose all trust in him. She set a clear boundary that if he wanted to stay close to her, he had to keep at least 2 meters away. Haru took this badly. He let out his frustration by breaking boards and complained to Asako. Asako tried to explain the problem in the simplest way, that if a girl did not want that kind of physical contact, then being touched like that felt very bad for her. Hearing something so simple made Haru even more upset, because now he realized he really hurt Shizuku. Meanwhile, Shizuku met Sasayan and some other students while they were talking about festival stalls. She gave them smart advice to improve their plans, then joked that in return, she wanted half the profit, showing that even though she tried to stay emotionally distant, she was still the same as before. Later, in the meeting to decide booth locations, a senior senior student pushed her. Haru saw this and immediately punched him. Because of this reaction, the group got the worst spot at the festival, and Haru was given the punishment of pulling weeds. While he was serving this punishment, Oshima came to him and advised that if he really cared about Shizuku, he should not rely on violence. She introduced herself properly again and said that after what happened, she decided not to live with regret anymore. Shizuku, hiding nearby, heard part of this and thought that if she really moved past her feelings, then why was she still hanging around Haru? That afternoon, Shizuku went with Asako and Sasayan to check her latest cram school results. On the way, they met Yamaken and his friends. Shizuku and Yamaken walked together for a while, and when she asked why he spent time with such dumb friends, he just said they were fun. When they reached the scoreboard, Shizuku saw she was in first place. This result convinced her that putting studies over her feelings was the right path. But when she returned to Asako and Sasayan, Yamaken's friends were asking Asako for festival tickets. Since Asako refused to give them her tickets, Shizuku handed over the ones she had and said she did not need them. That night, Haru came home and saw Shizuku waiting for him with a package from Asako. It seemed like he wanted to say something, but Shizuku spoke first and firmly told him she would never love him. Haru did not back down. Instead, he calmly said he would change her mind. The confidence in this answer surprised Shizuku. He took the bag and offered to walk her home, and on the way, he leaned toward her like he was about to kiss her. Then he remembered what Asako said about boundaries, and actually stopped himself before doing it. Shizuku, already frozen and confused, quickly grabbed the bag back from him and ran away. She kept telling herself that pushing him away was the right decision, but even after all this, she still could not understand why her heart reacted so strongly to him. Finally, the school festival started, and Shizuku's class was running a haunted house. Yamaken came there with his friends looking for something interesting, and was surprised to see Shizuku in a nurse outfit guiding guests inside. They were even more shocked when Haru, dressed as a full vampire, dragged a fake body in front of them. He got so serious in his role that he even sprayed fake blood on Yamaken's group, but they ignored the scary mood and just asked if he would introduce them to some girls. Shizuku quietly slipped out and went outside, where she started thinking again about what happened the night before. She regretted not being able to control her feelings in front of Haru, but she was also bothered that Haru seemed calmer about the whole thing than she was. At the same time, Yuzan also came to the festival. Mitsuyoshi asked him why he came, and Yuzan admitted he was curious to see how much Haru got involved in the event, especially because he knew his presence would make Haru uneasy. When Shizuku was alone in the courtyard, Yamaken came and said he was just passing by, but it quickly became clear he was lost. When Shizuku asked why he did not just ask someone for directions, he said he did not like depending on others. At that moment, Asako came to call Shizuku back, and before leaving, Shizuku asked Yamaken if he wanted to come with them. They all went back, where Haru was showing Nagoya the chicken to Yamaken's friends, and they were very disappointed that this was the special thing they were brought to see. Haru immediately saw Yamaken with Shizuku and asked why they were together. To annoy him on purpose, Yamaken grabbed Shizuku on purpose. This made Haru angry right away, especially because Shizuku had recently told him not to come near her. Yamaken pushed him further and said it was because Shizuku could not stand Haru. Haru lost control and tried to hit him, but the blow landed on Shizuku instead. Hurt and angry, Shizuku told him not to come near her again and walked away. Asako followed Shizuku to comfort her and gave some advice, but Shizuku was still angry, so she stopped her and coldly said it was not her business. This answer clearly hurt Asako. A little later, Yamaken brought ice for Shizuku so she could put it on her injured nose. On one hand, he wanted to reduce his own guilt, but he also said something that made Shizuku think more honestly about the situation. He said she expected Haru to act the way she wanted, but she did not meet the expectations Haru had for her, and that was not fair. While walking, Shizuku started to regret not only things about Haru, but also her attitude toward Asako. Then Yamaken saw Yuzan nearby and quickly pulled Shizuku into an empty classroom. Seeing Yuzan made him clearly uneasy. When Shizuku asked if he was scared of Yuzan, he denied it, but admitted he had a bad experience with him in the past. The empty classroom did not stay empty for long because soon after Haru came in with Oshima. He was also hiding from Yuzan and was angry that his brother showed up even after what happened before. The talk took a strange personal turn when Haru started complaining that every time he tried to show his feelings to Shizuku, things only got worse. Oshima, who by now had quiet feelings for him, openly confessed her feelings at that moment. At first, Haru did not take it seriously and thought she was joking, then got confused when Oshima made it clear she was being completely serious. Shizuku, already stressed by everything happening around her, wanted to leave, but Yamaken purposely stopped her in a way that made Haru notice. Haru immediately got angry again. Before another fight could start, Yuzan entered the room. As soon as Haru saw him, he grabbed Oshima tightly and then ran out in panic, even leaving his shoes behind. Yuzan came closer to Shizuku, but Yamaken, even with his fear, stood in front of him. Yuzan did not push things further. He just gave Shizuku the shoes Haru left and told her to give them back to him. On the other side, Asako was sitting alone crying because the way Shizuku talked to her hurt her. Mitsuyoshi found her and comforted her. Then Sasayan also came and stayed with her. After the classroom chaos ended, Shizuku went to look for Haru and gave him back his shoes. She told him he had to stop acting without thinking, and Haru admitted that once again he handled things wrong. But he also reminded her that she was the one who told him to stay away. Shizuku apologized for that and told him to forget she said it. Haru accepted her apology and decided he would also fix things with Oshima. After that, Shizuku found Asako and sincerely apologized for taking her anger out on her. Asako immediately started crying again, but this time from relief, and so the tension between them ended. Right after that, Haru came out of the bushes with Nagoya, and Sasayan joked to remind everyone the festival was still going and they all had to go back to work. When the festival was almost over and cleaning was nearly finished, Haru waited for Shizuku and fell asleep sitting down. When she came back and saw him like that, she quietly reached out to touch his hair, but he woke up and grabbed her hand. Then he told her to be honest with him, because she kept saying she did not like him anymore, but her actions still showed something else. This time, Shizuku told the truth. She explained that when she thought about him too much, she could not focus on studying at all, and losing that focus scared her. Haru listened to this and then pulled her into a hug. Shizuku did not reject him, but she did say she needed more time. She still did not know what to do with these feelings that kept pulling her away from the future she always planned for herself, and for now, that was the only honest answer she could give him. One day, Shizuku woke up and was shocked to see Haru calmly sitting in her room. He had come in through the window because her father did not let him in through the front door. They thought it was a school day, and Haru should not be wandering around the house. After the first shock passed, Shizuku remembered something even stranger. Her father was at home, even though he should have been at the shop at that time. She went downstairs to ask him about it and found out the family business had failed again. This news hit her hard, especially because she immediately started to feel guilty for leaving so much of the responsibility on her father. She called her mother Yoshino to tell her about it, but Yoshino was not surprised at all. She already knew her husband was not reliable, and she was more worried about how this would affect her own plans and work. After that, her father admitted in front of Haru that this was the 6th time the shop had closed. He called himself a failure and said his wife always had to carry the whole family's burden. Haru listened to him and in his blunt way said Shizuku was not as alone as her father thought, because now she had friends too. After that, Shizuku changed her clothes and went with her father to see what could be done about the business, and told Haru to leave. Later, at Misala Batting Center, Haru was studying with Sasayan and Asako. The talk slowly moved from school to relationships, when Sasayan mentioned a girl he used to know in middle school. He asked Haru if he remembered a certain girl from their old school, but Haru reacted like he just found out Sasayan also went to that school. The two boys kept talking about this in a way that made Asako uncomfortable, especially when Haru started asking if Sasayan and the girl ever got very close. Asako quickly changed the subject and brought it back to Haru and Shizuku's own situation. Haru said Shizuku told him she needed time to understand her feelings, and when he said this, everyone realized a whole month had passed. Asako immediately understood the problem. Haru had gotten too comfortable in this situation and had not taken any real step to move the relationship forward. Shizuku, who came there for something for her father and overheard this, was also surprised by the same feeling. She had left Haru in that state for a month without any answer. On the way home, Haru asked her about her father in the shop, and while talking, Shizuku started to share more about her family. She said her mother was always busy with work, and she also wanted to become a career woman like her one day. She also remembered something from childhood, that they once planned to keep goldfish in a water bowl in the yard, but it never happened. It seemed like a small memory, but it clearly showed that Shizuku learned to live with quiet disappointments from early on. Haru listened to this and, as always, took it very literally. He suddenly grabbed her hand and started taking her to the river, because he decided he had to catch a crayfish for her and make her happy. Instead of being touched, Shizuku got more annoyed. She did not understand why he was so focused on fixing things she thought were meaningless, while he did not understand the real feelings hidden under them. Still, Haru took this idea seriously and stuck with it. A few days later, Shizuku met Yamaken in the library. He asked where Haru was, and Shizuku honestly said Haru was still busy looking for a crayfish for her, even though it was November and there was no real chance of finding one. Yamaken just concluded that Haru's common sense stopped growing a long time ago. window. But then the talk got serious when Shizuku thanked him for what he said to her before. His words helped her face things in her life more directly, and hearing this surprised Yamaken so much, he dropped his book. Their talk kept going, and Yamaken slowly started to realize he was more interested in Shizuku than he ever thought he would be. At the same time, Asako was sitting in a cafe with Sasayan, waiting for the others so they could all study together. Then some girls from her class came in. These were the same girls who made fun of her before, so Asako immediately tried to hide behind the menu. But the girls saw her and started whispering like before. Asako looked like she was about to cry, but then Mitsuyoshi walked into the cafe. He did not have to say much. Just his presence was enough to make the girls back off and leave, and Asako was very impressed that he protected her without making a big scene. For someone who often felt worthless and unwanted, this kind of small, safe moment meant a lot. In the evening, Yamaken and Shizuku went their separate ways, and after she left, Yamaken finally admitted to himself that maybe he was falling in love with her. He also realized that Shizuku's pen was still with him. On the other side, Shizuku was sitting on the bus and remembered something her mother once said, that she had to keep working because her husband could not be trusted. This memory made the belief she was holding these days even stronger, that uncertain things were dangerous and only the future she could build with her own work and study was safe. Later, when she came back to the others, she saw Haru was still standing by the river, still trying to catch something for her. He had not succeeded yet, but he promised he would find something even better for her. Shizuku did not understand why he cared so much about things she learned to ignore long ago. At that moment, by chance, Yamaken was passing by in a taxi and saw Shizuku with Haru and the others. He got out of the car, but waited until he could talk to Haru alone. Then he threw Shizuku's pen to Haru and told him to give it back to her. Haru immediately asked why Yamaken had something that belonged to Shizuku. Yamaken answered that he met her in the library today. As he started to leave, Haru asked the question that was already there between them, if Yamaken loved her. Yamaken paused for a moment and answered honestly that yes, he did. Then he left, and Haru was left with the pen, that answer, and the growing feeling that he was no longer the only one being pulled toward Shizuku. One day, Shizuku found an anonymous Christmas party invitation in her locker. She ignored it, but later found another copy in her bag, and it became clear that whoever sent it was not going to give up. She immediately went to Asako to ask, and Asako soon admitted it was all her idea. She said she just wanted to surprise her and bring everyone together. When the day of the party came, Shizuku went shopping with Haru and Asako to help with the preparations. But from the start, Haru was acting strangely tense and overreacted to everything, like the crowded holiday atmosphere itself made him uneasy. Shizuku had planned to talk to him properly, but his attitude made it hard to do that. When they were buying chicken at a fast food place, the three of them ran into Yamaken and his friends. The boys immediately decided they would come to the party too, even though they were not invited. Asako reminded them that you needed an invitation to come to the event, but Yamaken's group did not care. When Shizuku asked Yamaken if he really planned to come, Haru spoke up before he could answer and said no, because Yamaken loved Shizuku. Everyone nearby was shocked to hear this. Yamaken quickly said he was only joking and made light of it, so everyone laughed and the conversation ended there. Still, Yamaken was annoyed inside by Haru's out-of-control mouth, especially because there was truth in what he said. The party was held at Mizawa Batting Center. Mitsuyoshi was surprised that nobody told him properly there would be a Christmas party, but he allowed them to use the place on the condition that they did not make too much noise. Yamaken's friends immediately went quiet because Mitsuyoshi had already warned them to stay away from Haru, and in their minds he had become the kind of person who would really carry out a threat. Meanwhile, Sasayan met Oshima on the way. She did not come to the party because she thought maybe the invitation was part of a joke. Sasayan told her Asako was worried about her and told her to come anyway. At first, Oshima hesitated, but then agreed and went with him. When she got there, Yamaken's friends were just happy that now another girl joined the group, and this made the atmosphere even stranger for Oshima. Inside the party, Mitsuyoshi noticed that Asako was avoiding him for no reason. Sasayan quickly figured out why. Asako had developed feelings for Mitsuyoshi. Realizing this, Sasayan quietly felt disappointed because he himself had hoped for something with Asako. On the other side, Mitsuyoshi's attention was on Haru, and he was honestly happy to see how far Haru had come. Not long ago, Haru did not even know how to be with others, and now he had a group around him, even if it was a messy one. Oshima still could not really find her place in this group and seemed lost during the party, but Sasayan told her to worry less about how others saw her and just be herself. Shizuku, as usual, was studying even at the Christmas party. When Oshima asked if she would go to the winter prep classes, Shizuku said yes. Yamaken said he would go to those classes too, and this immediately got Shizuku's attention, while Haru clearly started to feel jealous. This jealousy pushed Haru so far that he went to Mitsuyoshi and asked if he could also join the winter classes. Mitsuyoshi refused him, one reason being they could not afford it, and another that Haru did not really need those cram school classes. He had always been so smart that he never needed this kind of help for studying, so the only reason he wanted to go was because Shizuku and Yamaken would be there together. Meanwhile, in the batting area, Asako pulled Yamaken aside and told him not to interfere in Haru and Shizuku's relationship. Yamaken brought Oshima into it and said she also confessed her feelings to Haru, so if Asako came to give advice, she should say the same thing to Oshima. Asako answered that Oshima already knew where she stood. This hit Oshima deeply and made her feel even more troubled, because it made the quiet pain she carried from the start clear. When the party started to end and people were leaving, Yamaken talked to Haru alone near the stairs. He purposely made a sharp offer to Haru. He said if Haru gave up Shizuku, he would become his friend. For someone who once wanted friendship so badly, this was put in a very harsh way. Haru immediately refused and said if he had Shizuku, he did not need Yamaken. Then Yamaken asked what he would do if Shizuku said she liked him more. This question made Haru so angry he raised his hand, but at that moment, Shizuku came and said she was leaving. Haru dropped the fight and went with her, but before leaving, warned Yamaken to stay away from Shizuku. On the way home, Haru brought up the winter classes again. He could not hide how much he hated the idea of Shizuku spending time there with Yamaken. Instead of avoiding the topic, Shizuku took a more direct step. She grabbed his hand and said she loved him, so he did not need to worry about Yamaken. Hearing this calmed Haru and made him smile. But instead of just accepting her words, he immediately asked if that meant she would not go to cram school now. This question surprised Shizuku because for her, loving him and continuing her studies were not things that went against each other. When the winter prep classes started, Shizuku arrived at cram school and Yamaken was there too. Haru came after her again and kept saying she should not go in. At first, Shizuku ignored him, but he kept repeating it until finally Shizuku got angry. She turned and told him strongly that he had to stop interfering with her studies. These words hit Haru directly. At cram school, Shizuku sat with Yamaken and calmly said she was hungry. For a moment, Yamaken thought about asking her to dinner, but before he could say anything, he saw she had already brought food for herself. This small moment disappointed him in a strange way. Yamaken was usually the kind of person who got what he wanted. He came from a rich family, never had trouble getting attention from girls, and usually did not have to chase anyone. This made his interest in Shizuku even more confusing for him, especially because Shizuku did not see him much differently than others. Still, he kept coming to those prep classes, even though he knew it was no longer just for studying. At school, Sasayan showed the boys pictures from the Christmas party. Haru was happy with every picture that showed him and Shizuku together, but as soon as he saw a picture where Yamaken was clearly looking at Shizuku with interest, he threw the picture aside. Asako bent down to pick up the picture, but then immediately saw Mitsuyoshi in the background and got so nervous she hid it too. Sasayan asked what she was doing, but she avoided the question because she herself could not really explain her feelings. This scene quietly showed that everyone was carrying feelings inside they could not handle well. Later, on the way to cram school, one of Yamaken's friends asked if he was really serious about studying or just going, because Shizuku was there too. Yamaken denied he was that stupid. Then another friend came running and said a pretty girl from another school wanted Yamaken to ask her out. Normally, this kind of attention was nothing new for Yamaken. He knew girls liking him was not a problem. That was why his feelings for Shizuku bothered him so much. Shizuku did not try to impress him, but she was still stuck in his mind. On the street, he saw someone's back and for a moment thought it was Shizuku, but when he got closer, he saw it was an old woman he had happily walked up to. At that moment, a girl nearby saw him in this stupid state and kept staring at him, but Yamaken ignored her and walked on. A little later, he actually met Shizuku. He thought maybe he would tease her or start talking more openly, but before he could, a bicycle passed very close and he immediately pulled her into his arms to save her from getting hit. The moment was already strange, but at the worst time, Haru showed up and hit Yamaken on the head for touching Shizuku. Shizuku immediately took out her anger not on Yamaken, but on Haru, because he had followed her there again, even though she already told him not to interfere with her studying. Haru answered back and could not hide how much he hated seeing Shizuku with Yamaken. Still, Shizuku kept walking with Yamaken, and Yamaken, fully knowing what he was doing, purposely acted like he was pulling her close again to make Haru even more mad. Haru, angry, threw a can at him, but it hit Shizuku. One look from Shizuku was enough to show he had made everything worse again. When they got to class, Yamaken felt the bump on his head from where Haru hit him. Shizuku apologized and said she would help cool it down, but Yamaken refused. even though inside he wanted her attention. Then their talk got serious when Shizuku admitted she tried to talk about her feelings with Haru again, but instead of solving anything, he just reacted more to Yamaken's presence. Then she said it would be better if Yamaken stayed a bit away from both of them. At first, Yamaken took it as pride, like she was making her love problem sound bigger than it was, but Shizuku made it clear that was not what she meant. If Haru was feeling so jealous, it meant Yamaken was attractive enough to be seen as a real threat. This unexpected honesty from Shizuku surprised him. When class ended, he left with a strange happiness that Shizuku openly called him attractive, but then he realized that same strange girl who saw him before was still watching him. He ignored her again and walked away. That girl turned out to be Yu, who was Oshima's friend, and later she told Oshima she saw a boy walking around with a meaningless smile. That evening, Yamaken got lost and ended up where Haru usually stayed. He remembered their past meetings and for a moment wondered if being alone with Haru could actually be dangerous. But instead of attacking, Haru told him to walk with him for a while. As they walked, Yamaken thought about how Haru used to be and how different he seemed now. He told Haru he had changed. Haru disagreed. In his view, he was still the same, but Shizuku was changing, and that was what scared him. He said he kept thinking about what would happen if Shizuku moved forward and left him behind. In a darker and more controlling thought, he admitted that part of him wanted to never let her go away. Yamaken called him crazy, and Haru did not really deny that this feeling was twisted. He only said that thinking and doing were two different things, and he had been trying to stop himself. When Yamaken got into a taxi, Haru warned him that he would never do that kind of madness to Shizuku, but for anyone else he would make no promise. Yamaken took it as an empty threat and left. Soon after, it started to rain. Haru stayed outside in the rain and thought about how his relationship with Yuzan went from respect to bitterness and rejection. When Shizuku found him there, soaked in the rain, she did not know what to say. Haru told her she was his hero, because whenever he wanted to see her the most, she always showed up at that moment. Then he pulled her into his arms and said again that he loved her. He asked why he had to be the only one trying to hold back, when all he wanted was to go to her class, take her out of there, and erase all the distance between them. But at the same time, he also did not want Shizuku to hate him or leave him. He bluntly said he wanted her for himself. Shizuku was shaken by the intensity and helplessness in his words, but her answer did not change. She told him it could not happen because her studies were still very important to her. Standing in the rain, she could only think about why they never reached the same place emotionally. No matter how much they cared about each other, they were always out of step with each other. Asako went alone to Misawa batting center to give something to Sasayan, who was standing there with his friends. When she got there, one of the boys suddenly pushed his other friend forward because he liked Asako, and the whole thing turned into a joke where that boy became the target of everyone's laughter. Asako did not like at all that boys made fun of things like confessing love and having a crush, so she coldly left right away. Sasayan followed her and apologized, saying they did not mean any harm, but Asako still stayed angry. She said this was why she did not like boys. They embarrassed people as a joke, and even if they thought it was nothing, in the end, someone always got hurt. When she calmed down, the talk got more honest. She admitted she was cranky these days because Shizuku was always busy at cram school. Haru had been in a bad mood for days, and even talking to Mitsuyoshi had become strangely difficult. Sasayan immediately understood the reason and said it sounded like she was falling in love with Mitsuyoshi. Asako turned red right away and denied it, saying she would never like someone so much older than her. At that moment, Haru came in an unusually good mood, and they both asked him what happened. Haru proudly said Shizuku made a deal with him. If he kept himself under control and did not bother her until cram school was over and the new year came, then after that she would go on a picnic with him, wherever he wanted. Asako and Sasayan immediately understood that he was basically being bribed to stay quiet, but Haru was so happy he did not care. He even said they could come along too. The next day, when the school term ended, Shizuku was surprised herself that her plan worked so easily. Before going to cram school, she told Haru to just get through the rest of the year the same way. But Asako started to feel sorry for him, because it was clear to her that Haru still did not fully understand what kind of deal he had agreed to. To lighten the mood, she spent some time with Haru that day, and during this, Haru said he was worried about her. This made Asako embarrassed because she remembered what Sasayan said about Mitsuyoshi, and because she knew the holidays were about to start and everyone would be apart for a while. When Haru left, Asako suddenly realized she might not see any of her friends until the new year. Several days passed. While everyone else seemed to enjoy their break, Asako stayed home alone and felt completely lonely. On New Year's Eve, Shizuku called her. On the surface, the reason was simple and normal. She wanted to ask how to set the TV recording. But the call almost immediately became more important. As soon as Asako heard Shizuku's voice, she almost started crying. When Shizuku was about to hang up, Asako finally told the truth and said she felt very lonely. That was all it took. Soon after, later, she arrived at Shizuku's house with Haru, and the three of them suddenly had a sleepover. Shizuku's parents had gone to visit her grandmother, so the house was quiet and empty for them all night. For Asako, just being included like this was so important she could not put it into words. They spent the evening together, relaxed, and then went to sleep, and for a while, the loneliness that weighed on her disappeared. Later at night, Asako's phone rang, and everyone woke up. It was Sasayan, who was inviting them to the New Year festival. They left right away. The festival was full of crowds, noise, food, and restless energy. Haru and Asako enjoyed the atmosphere, while Shizuku worried that being out at this time was maybe too much. But Asako told her that was part of the festival. The problem started when Yamaken's friends got into trouble with some strangers, and Haru also got involved in the fight. Seeing Haru there, Yamaken immediately understood that Shizuku must be nearby, and he started looking for her. When he found her, he tried to act normal and offered to buy her food, but Shizuku said she would pay for herself. Asako bluntly told him he could not buy Shizuku's attention with money. Yamaken got annoyed at this and answered sharply, showing he did not like being understood so easily. Still, Asako's words stayed in his mind. He started to think maybe he should confess directly like Haru, instead of always circling around his feelings. As the festival went on, Shizuku, Haru, and Asako met Oshima and her friend Yu. When Shizuku and Haru walked ahead together, Asako spent some time with Oshima and quickly saw that Oshima still felt real pain watching Haru and Shizuku together. Asako told her maybe life would be easier if she liked someone else, but Oshima quietly admitted that no matter how much she wanted to, she could not stop thinking about Haru. It was a sad but honest moment between two girls, because both knew what it felt like to care about someone who only made things harder instead of easier. Finally, they met up with Sasayan, his baseball friends, and Mitsuyoshi, who took everyone to the roof so they could see the first sunrise of the year. Before the sun rose, Asako had a serious talk with Mitsuyoshi. She admitted she had acted strangely with him and did not know how to be around him after being rude before. She also said she did not like boys who easily got close to girls or made a joke out of feelings. Mitsuyoshi answered with much more kindness than she expected. He said being attracted to someone was normal and love was not a bad thing. In fact, good love was the kind that changed a person and helped them grow up. Hearing this, Asako gathered her courage and in a roundabout but clear way, asked if the two of them could grow up together. Mitsuyoshi stayed silent after hearing this. Nearby, Sasayan heard enough to understand everything and later told the boy who liked Asako that his whole plan had backfired. When the sun finally rose, everyone watched it in silence and happiness. Mitsuyoshi, who had seen this view many times before, was not as moved by the sunrise itself. Haru told Shizuku that whenever he was with her, everything felt good, and he asked if they could do this again next year. For him, this simple promise was as important as the sunrise itself. But while everyone else was busy with the start of the new year, Sasayan saw Asako had gone off alone again, still carrying feelings she did not fully know how to understand or handle, even though she had found the courage to speak them out loud. The holiday time passed, and Shizuku mostly stayed shut in her house, buried in books, trying to use the time well. But even while studying, her thoughts kept going back to Haru. Since the new year, she had not really seen him, and this silence left a strange emptiness in her daily life. Then, in this quiet, she suddenly heard Haru calling her name from outside. When she looked up, he was outside her window, in a weird outfit, wearing a helmet, goggles, and holding a net like he was on some serious search. He said he was looking for something, but before he could say what it was, he ran off again. After he disappeared, Shizuku found out he left his phone behind. After that, Haru met Asako and quickly asked her if she had seen it, but he talked so vaguely that Asako had no idea what he was talking about. Before she could figure anything out, he ran off again, this time leaving his net with her. The same thing happened when he ran into Sasayan and his baseball friends. He just said he was looking for something, then left right away and left his goggles behind. Shizuku tried to focus on studying again, but Haru's forgotten phone kept ringing. She ignored it at first, then finally answered and found Sasayan on the other end. He was just as confused by Haru's behavior and asked what she was going to do with the phone. Slowly, it became clear that Haru was running all over the city, losing his things and leaving a whole trail behind him. On the other side, Yamaken was out with his friends and Joji, who had just had an appendix operation and was supposed to be resting. At that moment, Haru suddenly showed up there too, still asking strange questions and still in a hurry. He dropped his gloves and even his keys, then disappeared again. Yamaken just watched him and wondered what Shizuku saw in someone so hard to understand. At that moment, Asako decided to return Haru's net to Misawa Batting Center. When she got there, the place was empty, with only a note from Mitsuyoshi. A little later, Shizuku also came there to leave Haru's phone, and instead of waiting, she wanted to give the phone to Asako and go back home to study again. Asako told her she should give the phone back to Haru herself, but Shizuku still wanted to leave quickly. Soon after, Sasayan also came there with the goggles and stayed with Asako and some of his friends. The situation got even stranger when Yu found Nagoya and took a picture picture of the chicken. She sent the picture to Oshima, and Oshima immediately recognized it as Haru's chicken, then called to say where it should probably be taken. Yu, carrying Nagoya, started looking for the batting center, and on the way met Shizuku. The two of them arrived there with Nagoya, and when everyone saw the chicken, they thought they finally understood the reason for Haru's running around all day. The most obvious answer was that Haru had spent the whole day looking for his lost chicken. Then, everyone thought about making a search party. Yamaken immediately refused to join and decided to leave, while Shizuku also said she was leaving. When both of them went in the same direction, Yamaken got lost again, and Shizuku gave him the right directions. Meanwhile, Asako, Sasayan, and the others kept searching for Haru on the streets. After a while, Sasayan said they should stop now, because maybe Haru had already gone back to the batting center, but Asako wanted to keep searching. The search finally stopped when Joji's wound reopened from too much walking, and everyone had to focus on him in a panic. On the way home, Shizuku finally met Haru. He was still searching for something with full focus, so Shizuku quickly told him that Nagoya had been found and everyone was worried about him. But to her surprise, Haru did not look satisfied at all. He said he was not looking for Nagoya from the start. Actually, he was looking for a glowing bug he once saw, and he wanted to catch it, or at least find it again, so he could see it together with Shizuku. He thought that if she saw it with him, it would look even more beautiful. Hearing this made Shizuku pause for a moment. Then Haru calmly took the things from her hands, gave her his helmet to hold, and started walking with her. The whole day, which from the outside looked random and meaningless, suddenly took on a completely different meaning. When they were climbing the stairs, Haru finally saw the glowing bug. He immediately told Shizuku to look at it, and the two of them watched in silence as the small light floated in the darkness. For Shizuku, that moment felt almost unreal. She felt it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. More than that, the quiet of the scene forced her to think honestly about her own heart. Haru was always too loud, too fast, too difficult, and too blunt. He kept breaking the order Shizuku built around her life, but he also kept giving her moments she could never reach by herself. Standing there with him, looking at that fragile light, Shizuku wondered if there would ever be a day when she could stand in front of him with her whole truth and show her feelings without fear or hesitation. The episode ended there, not on a big confession or decision, but on the quiet hope that stayed between them as they stood together in the darkness.